So I think we'll do about a 30-minute meditation now. And today's topic is Samadhi, because even though we haven't been meeting for a long time, I did finally remember that we were almost finished talking about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, except for the very last factor, which is Samadhi. So today we'll put our attention on that, and right now we'll have a chance to practice it. So please find a comfortable position. This is so important, to be able to be really comfortable when you meditate so that you're not distracted. I really feel that this is beneficial because it's not about creating or enduring pain so much. I mean, if we have pain that we can't relieve, then of course we have to learn how to endure it. But if we are able to sit in a way that's comfortable, whether it's on a chair, on a soft cushion, on the floor, or wherever, however, that is definitely preferred, so that you don't have to deal with a lot of distraction from the body. So taking a few minutes even to really adjust your posture, having your spine relatively straight. I say relatively because some of our spines just won't be straight. But it's not about the physical spine as much as it is about the energy flow. And so if the body is aligned, in whatever way is natural for that alignment, then it's open for energy to flow freely through it. And energy is very much a spiritual as well as a physical kind of component. And the main inhibitor for the flow of energy, the flow of the breath or the breath energy in the body is when we're tight. So we want to relax our muscles and relax our mind. And we can do this with taking a few deep breaths. Really letting the sympathetic nervous system kick in. Or is it the parasympathetic? I don't know, but I think you know what I mean. That relaxation. Coming to every part of the body. And as we pay attention to our breathing, following the breath in, staying present with the breath until the in-breath ends, and then there's that little space before you breathe out. Following the breath out. Taking the next breath in, and you just be present with that in a very gentle, easy way. You can observe the breath from some particular point at the nostrils or in the belly or wherever, but it's not necessary. You can also be present with the entire breath as it comes in the body and fills the body and leaves the body. If you notice any tension or tightness or soreness or discomfort in any area of your body, you can actually direct your attention towards that part. Sometimes we say things like breathe into that sore shoulder or whatever, breathe into that area. And sometimes people say, what does that mean? And it's really about bringing the focus of one's attention with the breath right to that area. And see what that feels like. Or do whatever you find, either intuitively or through experience, to be helpful. To invite your body and your mind to relax, to let go. Let go of anything that might arise in the mind relative to the past. That's gone. And let go of anything pertaining to the future, because that's just imagination. And instead, we can imagine, if you will, the calming of the body and the mind and a sense of peace. The body breathing in and breathing out. And bringing all this energy to the body. Fresh oxygen. The out breath carrying away any kind of waste, any kind of impurities. And filling the body with this breath energy. So we can be aware of the whole body at the same time that we're aware of our in-breath and out-breath. As the body relaxes and we experience it in this way, which is calm and non-judgmental, you may start to feel pleasant feeling arising. Some kind of joy. Might be what in Pali is called pamoja. There's this lightness of happiness. Or it might be PT, which is stronger, more sort of more delightful, tingling or warmth. Other kinds of feeling in the body. And the whole time we're aware when we're breathing in and we're aware when we're breathing out. And then we might experience some tranquility of the body. And tranquility of the mind. And all of this is like the path leading to Samadhi. To this kind of lucid calm, stillness, bright mindfulness, clear comprehension, clear understanding. And this calm mind. We can let this process unfold on its own. Our task here is to maintain our focus on that in-breath and out-breath, and to be present and aware of these experiences, these feelings, these indications that we're going in the right direction. And let go of everything else. You want to drop a suggestion into the mind, let it be one that's inspiring, uplifting the heart, encouraging, without references to self, just being. Welcome back. I hope it was a good journey. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Samadhi, and then we can discuss how we find it. And I think I might share my notes with you. It's a little bit easier that way, maybe, to see what I'm getting at. Okay, so right Samadhi. The translation of Samadhi is a little challenging. What do you call it? It used to be concentration. It's what the general choice was for it, but people are pulling away from that one because it has such a kind of a sense of bearing down on something, or really putting a lot of force into being focused on one thing. Also, one pointedness has a little bit of a distortion around how the experience really is most beneficial, which is to you're focused, focus is hard to use sometimes. Your attention is unified and deeply immersed or absorbed. So absorption or immersion are some of the ways that people are translating Samadhi these days. This morning, we're just going to talk about what it is and why do it and how to do it. So what is it? It's this becoming really calm and really shifting into an altered state of consciousness. And it works together with right effort and right mindfulness. So mindfulness is always present with Samadhi, and it's very much a conditioning factor for Samadhi, and so is right effort. But we have to be clear about what right effort is. So we've talked about it before, and I know that you're familiar with this concept, but it's helpful to remind ourselves that right effort is really about training the mind to be wholesome, help those wholesome mental states arise and keep them going, and to learn how to relieve the mind of the unwholesome mental states and to keep them from coming up. So that's where the effort is. Instead of thinking that effort has to be some kind of really strong determination, pushing on non-meditation, because usually when we do that, we start to get constricted. And whenever we get constricted or tight, we kind of spoil the whole project. It's really important to be open and very aware. That's another place where, it's not so much about force, but it's about consistency, being consistent about reestablishing our mindfulness, be consistent about, returning to our meditation object, that kind of thing. Of course, in the suttas, right, Samadhi is usually described in terms of the four jhanas. So here we have an example of where the four jhanas, how the four jhanas are described. This is from Middle Length Discourses number 51, but you find this same language sprinkled throughout the suttas. So it starts with giving up the five hindrances. So now I don't necessarily see it that way. I mean, we can't always just or let me see, sometimes I feel like directly head on dealing with a hindrance may not be the best approach. That if we establish mindfulness and we can start feeling that relaxation coming through the body, a lot of times the hindrances fall away on their own. So it depends on how virulent they are. But in any case, this says, give up the 5 hindrances, which are the corruptions of the heart that weaken wisdom. And then being quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, enter and remain in the first absorption or first jhana, which has rapture and bliss born of seclusion. So that's piti and sukha. So bliss or happiness is sukha. Rapture, which is, if you don't really know how that kind of thing presents itself, it can be confusing as to what it is. But once you realize that there are a number of ways that piti can be apparent, whether that's some kind of feeling in the body, which is like a tingling or fullness or warmth or something like that. And also in the mind, a joyful, kind of positive, uplifted experience. It's that feeling of spiritual energy coming in. So while this is happening, while the mind, it says here, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. So this is a translation by Bhante Sujato. I think Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation is usually applied and sustained thought. And so these are the terms we get used to, but we have to notice whether or not we feel we understand what it means. So in terms of, what's this? It's Pali is vitaka vichara. So the vitaka is applying the mind to something or placing the mind on the meditation object. So we place the mind or apply the mind to the breath, for example, and then the sustaining of that application, that's the vichara. So we keep it connected, or we keep it in our focus. And so this is, we have to remember that these are descriptions of what happens or what might be happening as we deepen the samadhi. And so this is the first level of the first jhana. And there's a lot of disagreement among people about how much samadhi, how deep the samadhi needs to be to awaken. Ajahn Ganha, as I'm sure you've heard me say before, says not that deep. From Ayya Santussikā, who used to live at Ajahn Buddhadasa's place, he was her teacher. He said you only need enough samadhi to have the the kind of concentration that it takes to put the key into the keyhole and unlock the door. And that's all you need. And there are other people who claim you've got to have all 4 jhanas. So I don't think we should even worry about that. I think we should just do this practice and enjoy it and let it unfold in its natural way. And this natural unfoldment is further described here. Then what happens as after being in this state of, intentionally keeping the mind connected to this meditation object, and there can come a point where that falls away. We don't have to be thinking about it. We don't have to be putting effort towards keeping it connected. Instead, it just becomes so still that you're in, of course, then they've labeled this the second absorption, where there's rapture and bliss, so more piti and sukha, that's coming from this immersion, from this samadhi. And you have internal clarity and confidence. The mind is unified. And you don't have to be kind of putting it back on the meditation object. It's just really there. And then the third absorption is that the rapture fades away. So rapture, the PT is it's very pleasant and wonderful, but it's a little bit coarser. And the more subtle happiness kind of takes the front kind of position in this third level of samadhi. And there's equanimity. It says, you meditate with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss which the noble ones declare, equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. So it's a beautiful mental state it's you can listen to people like Ajahn Brahmali and Ajahn Brahm talk about these beautiful mental states, and they do a really good job of describing some of the kinds of things we might experience at that point. And then giving up, the fourth one, giving up pleasure and pain. So you're no longer feeling the body. You don't feel pain anymore. In fact, the body has probably disappeared by now. And then you're letting go of the ups and downs of the mind too, the happiness and sadness. And at this point, there's just pure equanimity and mindfulness. So that's the description of these levels of samadhi. And I think it's very important not to get caught up in where am I, what am I experiencing. This is just intended to be a bit of a roadmap. It's not like the prescription. This is not telling us how. It's not something that, like if we try to practice to make this happen, it doesn't work. So how do we make it happen? I want to show you one more thing here before we move on to why do it at all. I think you already know, but here, this sutta number 44, this is where the Bhikkhuni Dhammadina is visited by a layman named Visakha. And according to, I suppose it's commentarial, I'm not sure it says this in the suttas, but they say it's her ex-husband. So she became a nun and he came to see her. He's also a really strong practitioner. And he's asking her about samadhi. What is samadhi? And what are the foundations of samadhi? And what things are the prerequisites for samadhi? And what is the development of samadhi? And I think her answers are very short and clear. That samadhi is the unification of the mind. And I really like Ajahn Jayasaro's words for this lucid calm that he uses in the biography of Ajahn Chah. So lucid calm. And so you can see, like Ajahn Chah and some of the other forest teachers, they don't want us to think about these definitions of jhanas. They want us to just relax and go into them. Really don't focus the mind on trying to get some particular experience. It really messes us up. It also, if someone tells us, oh, well, those things that you're experiencing, this adds up to stream entry, that's another thing that really messes people up. They get caught up in being a stream enterer or some such thing, and they're not letting go of the self, and they're not letting go of the practice in a way that helps, supports, or allows the practice to unfold. And it can get really stuck. So she says, unification of mind. So the mind is not going all over the place. It's not thinking of two things at once. It's just there, present. And the four kinds of or applications of mindfulness meditation are the foundations for samadhi. So when people think, oh, mindfulness and samadhi are kind of two separate things, yeah, in a way that's true. I mean, we are talking about them as different factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, but mindfulness is so fundamental. And the four kinds or applications is what's usually been called the four foundations of mindfulness. There are translators who feel like that's really kind of misleading because they're not really foundations, they're applications. I like applications, like you apply mindfulness to the body or to feeling or to the mind or to the Dhamma, but you're applying it to it. It's a different kind of understanding than you get from foundations. But here you see it is a foundation for samadhi. So the mindfulness is essential for samadhi. And then this, what are the prerequisites? It's the four right efforts. And, I've written in here, what about relax to the max? Which is what Ajahn Brahm talks about. It's like, and I said it before earlier, it's really the ongoing, gentle, but consistent effort to purify the mind. And we're going to see in a minute that this is really where it all begins. Sila and purifying the mind, the purity of the mind. So we'll get to that a little bit deeper in a minute. And then what is the development? The cultivation, development, and making much of these same things is the development of immersion. So you're really developing the purity of the mind, using those four right efforts. You're really developing that habit to not indulge in unwholesome mental states, not get wrapped up in what we're angry about, irritated about, what this person is doing, what that person is doing. No, we're turning it back to what's wholesome, what's generous, what's kind, but wisdom, know what people are up to and what our own mind is up to. You don't overlook that. You're not just putting rose-colored glasses on, but you're not letting the mind go negative there. You're not letting the mind be overrun with fear or craving or, so that you're always paying attention to sifting that out of the mind, dealing with the feelings that arise from it by facing them. So this is beautiful because the Buddhist teachings are really complete. It's a complete system. And at the same time, it's consistent. You see different teachings coming through these original suttas that meet and fit together like pieces of a puzzle. No matter where you read it from, it fits together and reinforces this kind of system of living and thinking and training and relief from suffering. Why do we do it? Well, I like this little piece of this sutta. This is from the Middle Length Discourses, number 48. This is when the monks were fighting with each other, arguing. There was a big disagreement in one of the groups, and the Buddha was informed about it and he was asked to come and try to help them, and he went, and it's if you haven't seen the sutta, I would recommend you look at it. The monks there actually said, "Oh, don't bother with us. We'll take care of this. This is our problem," and they're just like embroiled in this disagreement. And the Buddha, maybe this is there might be two different suttas about this, but At one point, he, after they tell him, no, just leave it, leave us alone and let us like duke it out. I mean, can you imagine kind of telling the Buddha to just like buzz off? So he just like gets up in the morning, goes to get alms, and comes back, eats his food, puts his sleeping place in order, and he stands there telling them off. And I don't think this is the sutta where he tells them off. I think this is the sutta where he's still trying to get them to see the light. And one of the things he talks about in this sutta are 6 principles of cordiality. So 6 principles that help us get along well with each other. And so this is a beautiful sutta. And the part here about samadhi that I find interesting is it says, when one dwells both in public and in private, possessing in common with their companions in the holy life, those virtues that are unbroken, untorn, unblotched, unmodeled, liberating, commended by the wise, not misapprehended, and conducive to immersion. This too is a principle of cordiality that creates love and respect and conduces to unity. So in this, this idea of having this really solid sila, really solid morality, ethics, virtue, and that is what supports samadhi. It's conducive for the mind going into samadhi. So it's good to just be really clear that samadhi is something we don't make happen. We can't decide I'm going to have samadhi. We have to put in the causes and conditions. It's like we can't decide, okay, 10 a.m. this morning, oh, we're past 10 a.m. I better make it noon. At noon today, I'm going to be enlightened. We just can't do it. It doesn't work that way. It's something that we put in the causes and conditions, and we make our effort going forward to be upwards. We put our intention there, and we purify the mind, and it's a process. But when that beautiful mental state comes, yes, all of our good efforts, including our intention to relax and let go, that all puts the conditions in place. But then it just happens. It happens when it happens. And so this is how we need to prepare for it, for samadhi, and then for enlightenment too. Okay, so why do it? So that whole idea of where does the samadhi lead? It's not just some good feeling. It actually leads to enlightenment and is essential for enlightenment. So as we're putting in the causes and conditions for samadhi, we get this list. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya, and it's really lovely. It's very much like the transcendent dependent origination that we see also in the Samyutta Nikaya, where it starts with sila, it starts with ethical conduct by body, speech, and mind. And in this sutta, I recommend you look at it. It says, if you have good sila, you don't have to think, well, may I have the experience of non-regret. It just naturally happens. You don't have to make it happen. You don't have to have the volition. The volition comes in making the conduct ethical. And what's interesting about it is that sila it's not just the 5 precepts, that's the baseline. That's like below that, you're acting like an animal. 5 precepts, you've made it into the human realm. This is something that they say in Thailand. It's the way they think about it. And it's got some basis in the suttas. It's like, no, we're not just going to go out and feed on each other. We're going to have, ethical conduct, spiritual kind of actions, generosity, caring, honesty. But it comes down to even right view, you know, like how we interpret what people say and do, how we interpret, or how we, whether we are judging, how we, what kinds of conclusions we come to about other people and about ourselves. And, this is all, do I really have solid sila in this regard? Can I take a position that's harsh, or do I take a position that's generous and kind? And again, you always have the wisdom factor there. It's not like you just brush things under the rug. You see them for what they are. But there can be a very different attitude of the mind in these things. And so the more we purify our ethical conduct into these levels of how my mind is oriented, the more we experience non-regret. And that non-regret, he says, when you have a mind that has no regret, then pamoja, joy, that kind of joy arises. It's the joy of seeing the Dhamma. It's like Ayya Bodhi talks about her youth, her young life, and when she was young, it was really tough. She had there was a lot of abusive behavior that she was subjected to, and other things, and she was pretty miserable and depressed as a teenager. And then she read something. She read about the Four Noble Truths, and it just hit her. It's like, wow, there's a way out of this. And with that kind of experience comes this joy. It's a joy that there is the Dhamma. In the chain of dependent arising, it starts with faith. Faith comes. It's like this faith that there is a way out of this, and joy comes from that. So the Buddha says you don't have to make joy happen. It just arises out of this non-regret, or it arises out of faith. And from the joy, there's an automatic, natural arising of piti. So it's a more intensified joy, this spiritual joy, spiritual energy. And from there naturally arises tranquility, passaddhi. And you can see how it goes. And then the sukha, the bliss, the more subtle but really refined, beautiful happiness. And then samadhi, this immersion of mind, and all of the kinds of beautiful states that can come with that. But this is in this section on why. And the why is because with samadhi, you're touching into that. I don't know how you want to think about it, a reservoir of knowledge, of wisdom that helps us to really know and see the way things are. Yata bhutang janati pasata. So this is like, these are the words. This is a little different than some of the other passages, but it's like to truly know and see. And from there we become, this says disillusioned. I'm trying to think of the other words. Disenchantment is used sometimes, but some translators don't like it because it's not strong enough. Nibbida really has this kind of sense of, I'm done with, I don't have any interest in this world with all of its uncertainty and falling apart. It's not quite right either. it's not about a lack of interest, it's a lack of desire for. And it's really more of, it's kind of a pushing away of like, I don't want to encourage this in myself. There's still an interest in this, relieving the suffering of helping, but that's different. This is like this disgust with the world. And then there's this word, a lot, most of the time is viraga in this sequence, but in this particular sutta, it's virajati, to be dispassionate. And that leads to realizing knowledge and the vision of freedom, so full enlightenment. Vimukti jnanadasana, to see, there's enlightenment when you see that there is enlightenment. So this is why we want to do Samadhi. It's not just to feel good, although that's great, and we should feel good. So then how do you do it? Well, the only thing I put here in the notes is use mindfulness of in and out breathing. And of course, it's not the only meditation approach that's viable, of course, but it does fulfill all of the requirements. So if you only use mindfulness of breathing, you've got it, it's enough. Mindfulness of in and out breathing, as the Buddha said, fulfills all of the foundations. Let's see, we like that other word better, the applications of mindfulness. And it also fulfills the enlightenment factors. So that's all you need. So the whole idea here is, yes, it's good to understand what these different states are like, but we don't make them happen. We turn our mind in that direction and we put in the real required factors. It's like if you're gonna get some college degree and there are these prerequisite classes, and then once you do the prerequisite classes, you don't have to really make an effort to do anything else. It just happens. That's kind of how this is. So the prerequisites are, to really work with that wholesomeness of the mind, and of course speech and action also, to really get the sila down. And one of the things that you can think about, if your meditation is a struggle, look back at what you're doing in your life, thinking, saying, and doing, and see if there's a way to purify it more. And it's really something we can almost always find some way that we can further purify our conduct. And that's the most likely thing to bring about more richness in our meditation. So I'd like to hear from you now if you have questions or comments or stories or anything. Complaints are also okay. Yes, Karen.
I have a question actually. I really liked what you said about how, you don't say, okay, I'm gonna hit the second jhana today. It's more of a just be patient and practice. But I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. Like I do feel like I'm stuck in that trap of trying to get the first jhana now that I've read about it, right? So my mind, I think I'm a little stuck there. And I feel like, I feel like I need to knock that idea. So I was wondering if you could just give me some advice on that.
Yeah, I think what you might try is to get quiet and be present with that feeling that comes with that wanting to get the jhana. So it's like there's a desire there and there's a feeling there. And if you investigate that feeling and you stay present with that, especially if you can locate it in your body, and be present with that feeling. Give yourself some soothing around that, and let the feeling change and pass through. And then, I think in a lot of times, to be more kind with ourselves, to be less, in some way, less goal oriented. We can make, kind of practice goals, like I'm gonna meditate 2 hours a day, and maybe that'll work for a while. But if it becomes something that's, you can tell when it's like not returning the the desired result. But anything like that, like what you're saying, where's it really rooted? Where is it coming from? And can we let go of that? And we do have to turn towards whatever feeling there is in order to work that through.
I feel like I'm going through this debate with my mind. I'm trying to show my mind that there's a better way to be happy, a better way to find peacefulness. And I feel like it's rebelling on me and saying no. And I keep trying to show, do you think that's a good method? I used to be like, oh, I'm going to do 2 hours a day, this and that. But I did find I was falling into that goal trap. So I got rid of that. And I thought I would take the philosophy of just trying to show my mind that there's a better way to live. And so I'm kind of working with that kind of.
Yeah.
I think what you suggested would work really well with that kind of practice I'm doing.
Yeah, we do need to convince ourselves sometimes to actually do the practice. But if we can do that, and sometimes what really helps is doing it with other people and spending more time with spiritual friends if you can. And like people were saying, there's so many offerings right now, Dhamma things, and boy, you can tune in almost any time of day and get something, I think. So that might be helpful. We do need to find ways to encourage our mind. I feel like there's this mind is like a child that I need to train. It doesn't want to do everything that it should do, and I gotta encourage it. And beating it up does not help. We have to be more skillful and gentle than that. But there is the wisdom part of the mind, and I kind of hear that in you. There's the wise part, the almost parental part that says, look, this is important. You're going to feel better. But sometimes it's hard to pull the mind away from the other sort of more scintillating distractions and actually do the meditation. And it's not just a problem in the modern age. The Buddha said it to the monks, don't waste your time, meditate, otherwise you're going to regret it later. So, yeah, we just have to keep working on it.
Yeah, thanks. That's good advice. I do find my mind is getting more attracted towards quiet things than titillating excitement.
Great.
So I'm finding that beneficial. So, thank you.
Good. Yes, Linda.
One of the things that I've missed this last couple of years since COVID is the opportunity to actually go away from my home and go on retreat. And not to say that's the only way to settle the mind, but to have a period of time where that you have no other distractions, really can set, kind of set the tone for doing it back home as well. So that's one of the things that I'm intending to do this year is go off on a retreat. And I mentioned I did the the Birkin retreat with Ajahn Sona. And it was between Christmas and New Year's, and I did have some other commitments. But as far as but I was able to focus on all of the actual event times. And I added in, or I continued to do my own morning meditation. And then there was an afternoon sit and an evening sit. And about 4 days into it, I thought, I mean, I just noticed, the level of just calmness and just joy that I felt. And, so I did gain more of an appreciation for the time to step away. It just makes the whole process a little easier, it seems.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, all of these tools, we need to really pay attention to whether or not it's helping us, and if at some point the mind turns it into something else. I'm convinced that the human mind can pervert anything. So we have to watch out for that. And it's true what you're saying. If we can do a retreat, if we have to be at home, I mean, it does make a difference to sit with other people. When I was in Portland, someone who lived in San Jose and used to come regularly to programs we did in person in San Jose has moved up to Portland, and she came to the session we had on Sunday morning last week. And she was so excited to just, like she said, this is the first time I've sat with a group of people since the pandemic started. And it's just like, was so helpful for her. And, yes, we're missing that. I think all of us are. And it's great that you could do that with the Birkin community and feel at least some significant degree of that kind of spiritual connection and community and support and practice. It also helps a lot if we can have a dedicated space in our house to practice. Not everyone can have a meditation room, but maybe some corner somewhere that is really for practice. And you build up an energy there, and you walk past and it pulls you over into that any kind of thing like that we can do to encourage the mind in that direction of calm and peace is good. I'm planning to go to I should let you know this. I'm planning to leave around February 4th to go for 3 weeks of meditation at Empty Cloud Monastery in New Jersey. We'll see what happens with this extraordinarily huge wave of COVID to see if that actually occurs. But it's the same thing. It's like, even we have a monastery, but it's our monastery. So we're dealing with the leak in the roof and the whatever else is going on, brokenness and this or that. And it's like getting away from where you have responsibilities to a place where you can set that all down and be supported, and not have to worry about where your food is coming from and everything else. It's very helpful. It can be very helpful. And of course, there's the more I think about this, kind of like what we just talked about, this idea that we need to prepare the ground. If we really, if you're going to have retreat time, if you put some effort into thinking about how to refine your sila beforehand, that could be really helpful. And it's not just like, I'm sure you're all living a very good ethical life, but it's more than that. It's some mental states, like, what do I let my mind chew on. That's not healthy. And things like that. So there really is no regret. And it's not just like some big bad thing that happened. I mean, we may all have that. So we've all done stuff. But we need to learn how to forgive that and let it go. But then, even the subtler energies that get created by our grumpiness or our judgmentalness or whatever it is, it's good to look at all that, see if we can let that go.